So I want to start by saying that there is no one set way to generate leads. You can generate leads through lots of different ways. However, in this video, I want to cover exactly why most lead gen sort of offers and most lead gen approaches don't work as consistently as they should do. That's my goal with this video. So I want to talk more about it. So, why don't most work? So, in my opinion, I believe that if you want predictable results to come through in any aspect of life, you want to have some level of control. And that's an awful spelling, but you want some level of control over what is happening, right? This is why, typically if you have, say, if you're currently relying on things like referrals, or just generally your network or inbound, yes, there's some things you do have control over, but not really, or not as much as you could. So this is why this is the sort of stuff that is typically going to cause issues. That said, you can also look at it as things maybe like content, right? Where obviously content is useful to have, and obviously this is content, and there'll be content on LinkedIn and wherever. But the issue still stands that, well, what's the issue with content? Well, the issue with content is that you don't have as much control over the amount of people that see your content, but you also don't have control over the actual individual that sees your content either. So when you're putting your heart and soul into content, you're relying on content, because of these two things, you are almost left feeling a bit stuck, or at least that's what I feel and see most people. So, what is it that I believe is going to give you more control? So, what I find give you more control is things which you can effectively execute on, and you have a general idea of, if I do X, I don't know, number of things, that I will be likely to see, Y outcome, right? And to put this into an example, this is something like doing outreach, or at least outbound work. Now, no one likes outreach. Obviously, it can take time. It can feel a bit dodgy. I want to share what it is that I do and just basically my approach with it. So, when I'm looking at outreach, the first thing I'm looking at is being able to connect with ideal clients. Because what you need to make sure is that you can consistently get in front of the right people. That's the first thing you should be doing, right? Because like I said before, right back down with content, the issue, you could get in front of tons of people, but if you're not getting in front of the right person, it doesn't matter, right? Which is why you'll tend to see content that maybe blows up, but doesn't really go anywhere because it wasn't really getting in front of the right people, or just didn't resonate with the right people. So we want to be able to connect with people. When we're connecting with people, how are we doing it? Well, ideally speaking, you want to be filtering for your ideal client. So this, typically speaking, for me, is going to be using LinkedIn Sales Navigator, where I'm going to filter for people that were recently active on LinkedIn. I'm filtering for headcount of their business. I'm filtering for job role, uh, you know, those sort of filters, industry, as a way of being able to make sure that the people I'm getting in front of are the right people, right? This is really key, because I want to make sure that every single day, right? So for me, I might send about maybe 20 to 30, about 20 to 30 connection requests every single day, Monday to Friday, or Monday to Saturday sometimes if I max out. And what this means is that without me having to do anything extra, I know, right? Assuming I've obviously filtered for someone who is somewhat active on LinkedIn, I know every single day I am getting in front of 20 to 30 of my ideal clients, right? I know that because they're going to see me pop up, having sent a connection request. Now, these connection requests don't have a note, but it's just focused on getting in front of them. That's it. Then obviously, assuming you've got your profile set up, to communicate very clearly, and I mean very clearly, about who you help, what you do, how you do it, that sort of core result you get your clients, then they can obviously decide if they want to reject that, accept that, perhaps look at your profile first to actually take a look, right? So this is the sort of thing, but you see, this isn't level of control. And funnily enough, if you start sending connection requests, right, and you actually filter for your ideal clients, they could look at your profile, and then all of a sudden they could look at that recent piece of content that you put out. And so all of a sudden you now have more control over the person seeing it, and I guess to some level the amount of people seeing it. So this is where I believe lead generation does start to pick up and really get more consistent. So that's one thing, right? Be able to connect with those people. But that said, that isn't enough, in my opinion, in terms of being able to drive consistency. And by that, I mean be able to drive more consistent sales calls coming in. So once we've gone and connected, then ideally we need to actually start the conversation, right? We need to start the conversation. And a lot of people really overthink this, right? They think they need to have some sort of pitch deck in place. They think they need to have a certain template or an automated message. Like, you don't need that. All you really need is the message to do two things. You want the message to ideally be personalized to them, right? And that's not just their name or their business, but usually I might look at a recent post of theirs, and then make some sort of compliment on that. And you also want to make sure you ask a qualifying question as well. And this can be pretty casual, and you want to try and make this pretty casual. So for me, what I will typically do is, I might start off as sort of, hey name. Obviously, I'd fill out their name, obviously. Hey name. And then typically, I'm then going to put the compliment here. This compliment, like I said before, right? So I don't know, for example, let's say this is their profile. I'm going to scroll down to where their content is. And scroll down to where their content is, right? And I'm going to look at what they've done recently, and I'll basically throw that up into the compliment, right? Nothing crazy. Ideally, if you can make it a little bit, playful and something that, might make them feel like there's a human on the other end, that's ideal. So that's really that, right? That's the first line. And then the second line is just want to be a pretty open question. All this question's trying to do is just to see if or how you can help them. That's it. So for me, I might ask a question such as, how's LinkedIn? Obviously, I'd write this, a bit better, but how's LinkedIn, I don't know, treating your lead flow, for example, right? That's it, right? How's LinkedIn been treating your lead flow lately, or something? So it's like the question is somewhat direct, right? And this is important because you want to make sure that the person on the other end, I mean, they like a lot of the time they sort of feel like they know what's going to come. So you do want to effectively, be somewhat upfront, but you're not doing it in a way where you're pitching or saying, hey, I've helped X amount of people or whatever. You're just opening that question up. And then from there, obviously, they can then decide if they want to go and respond to that and whatever, right? But the general idea here is that if I'm sending maybe, I don't know, 20 to 30 connection requests a day, and let's say about, I don't know, 5 people accept every single day, then typically speaking, I'm going to be sending maybe like 25 like new messages every single week. So that's about 100 new conversations a month. And these are typically going to be warmer. And what it basically means is, if like for me at the moment, I can say, okay, well, if I send this many messages, I will have a general idea that I should be able to propose this many calls and book this many and close however many. So this is the whole idea. The whole idea, like, coming back to this, is control. It's having more control over your lead generation process. Now this doesn't have to be crazy, right? The connections, once you've got the list set up, should take about 4 minutes, maybe a day, right? Sending connections. The outreach stuff, once you've put together a system, really it's just open up the profiles, start the conversation, That's it. Ideally, obviously, log that in some sort of CRM so you can track leads. But that's about it, right? But, we're not relying on things that we don't have control of, right? We are the ones going out there and such. And I understand fully that obviously, ideally, we want people to come to us because there's less friction, whatever. But if your lead flow isn't where you want it to be, you need to have an element of control. And I believe that things like outreach is the exact thing to do for that. So, yeah, generally, this is pretty much, in my opinion, why most sort of lead gen offers and approaches just aren't giving it consistent leads as possible because a lot of the stuff out there, like I mentioned, right, things like content and even referrals just doesn't have as much of control that you, or at least doesn't give you as much control that you could have over the situation, over the amount, over the amount of referrals you get, over the amount of people that see your stuff and who sees it, right? So this is why I believe, look, if you don't have a solid method at the moment, at least consider giving this approach a go, even the bare minimum, but just start sending connection requests to ideal clients and then just aim to start conversation with them. That's going to take you so much further ahead than having to rely on things that don't give you as much control. So, hopefully, you found this video useful, and I'll catch you soon.